My name is Aisha, just Aisha. No royal lineage, no glittering city skyline in my backyard. Only the soft cadence of roosters at dawn and the scent of wet earth after monsoon rains. I grew up where neighbors still borrow sugar and gossip travels faster than the wind across harvested fields. In our lanes of sun-bleached bricks, weddings are not events. They are festivals that repaint the town in color, turmeric yellows, henna reds, and the sudden shock of fuchsia bangles chiming against young wrists. From the moment I understood the word bride, I carried 2 suitcases inside my mind. One was packed with dreams, of palms woven together beneath fairy lights, of a voice that would speak my name like a secret, of feeling seen. Not the way relatives analyze your ability to roll perfect chapati circles, but seen the way poets behold the night sky and whisper, "You are infinite." The second suitcase was heavier. Stories traded across dormitory bunks, late-night YouTube confessionals, cautionary whispers in salon chairs. Each one filling me with questions. Would it hurt? Would I disappoint? Which version of my future was waiting? The magical, the painful, the comedic, or the tragic? At 22, an age my grandmother called ripe and my cosmopolitan cousins labeled terrifyingly young, I stepped into a marriage arranged more by cosmic timing than courtship. I barely knew the man I was about to promise forever to. Yet in our community, forever is often the starting line, not the finish. If you have ever witnessed a South Asian wedding, you know there is a particular chaos that spins into beauty. Sari pleats must cascade just so. Aunties compete in saffron-colored storytelling. Cousins form paparazzi squads. Elders bless and bargain with the heavens. I remember floating through it like a lantern set loose on a river. Eyes dazzled, cheeks aching from ceremonial smiles, heart doing somersaults each time someone called me Dulhan bride. Between the click of camera shutters and the chant of verses older than empire, there was hardly space to breathe, let alone contemplate the private universe of the wedding night. Yet the thought pulsed beneath every ritual. My henna'd hands were canvases of swirling vines, but they trembled when no one watched. Each goodbye hug from family felt like a chapter closing. Each congratulation from friends sounded like a drumroll to an act I hadn't rehearsed. When the final song faded and rice grains settled like tiny constellations in my dupatta, I climbed into a car that smelled of jasmine garlands and fresh leather. My father's silhouette receded in the rearview mirror, shoulders squared against tears. I pressed my forehead to the cool window, letting street lamps streak into golden comets, and swallowed the truth. Childhood had ended in the span of a single Vidai procession. His family home rose before me, grand but unfamiliar, windows glowing with curiosity. Women with kind eyes and men with courteous nods ushered me over a threshold strewn in rose petals. Tradition says the bride's first step should rhyme with fragrance. My own fragrance, however, was nervousness varnished with expensive perfume. The corridors echoed with laughter and congratulations. Yet in that moment I felt like a glass figurine balanced on the edge of a shelf. One careless touch and I would shatter. I noticed details that later would blur. A child's balloon tangled in a ceiling fan, the faint clink of bangles as someone adjusted their dupatta, the hum of an air conditioner battling humid night air. Each detail grounded me, a breadcrumb trail through a forest of newness. Finally, the relatives withdrew, leaving soft promises of rest. Beta, you must be tired. Tired? My body was rigid as a cathedral pillar, my mind sprinted laps around every first-night horror story, my imagination collected since adolescence. A cousin guided me to our bedroom. The word "our" felt strange, like a borrowed coat not yet broken in. The door shut with a click that echoed down my spine. Moonlight fell through sheer drapes, pooling silver on a bed blanketed in rose petals so scarlet they appeared almost unreal. In that crimson sea I perched, eyes anchored to the floor, pulse drumming a tribal beat in my ears. The perfume of marigolds, sandalwood, and a sweetness I couldn't name hovered in the air like a prophecy. Minutes, perhaps centuries, later, the door whispered open. I felt rather than saw him. Our eyes, the man who had slipped a ring onto my finger hours ago. His presence changed the room's gravity. I could map his gentle steps by the creak of polished wood. Breath caught in my throat. Even the petals seemed to hush. He sat, not beside but near, allowing space for my swirling emotions. A thick moment of silence stretched between us, fragile as spun sugar. Then, in a voice low enough to calm a skittish colt, he said, Aisha, I know tonight carries 1,000 expectations. Let's begin with something simpler, conversation. The relief that washed over me tasted like cold water on a parched tongue. Conversation, I understood. Conversations built friendships, and friendships could cradle love. He poured water into a glass so delicately I feared the liquid might apologize for daring to ripple. When our fingertips brushed during the handoff, a spark, more surprise than seduction, jumped across skin. My cheeks heated. I blamed the room's humidity. Our eyes noticed and chuckled. Relax, I promise I'm not a cannibal. I laughed, a quick sound like wind chimes in a light breeze, and just like that a wall tumbled. He told me about the comical panic of misbuttoning his sherwani, about almost tripping on the stage stairs, about how terrified he'd been that my mehndi would smear if he held my hand too long during the ring ceremony. Each confession painted him in human hues, far from the mythical fearless groom I'd imagined. With every sentence, my heartbeat slowed from gallop to trot. Silences peppered our dialogue, but they rested easy, unforced. When embarrassment flickered across his eyes, my own nerves softened. Fear, I realized, wasn't a female monopoly. In admitting his vulnerabilities, our eyes granted me permission to breathe. At one lull, he asked, May I hold your hand? 5 words simple as wooden beads, yet strung together they formed a key that unlocked something inside me. I nodded. His palm enveloped mine, warm, steady, careful. Not a single motion suggested ownership. Rather, it felt as though he were holding a rare shell given by the tide, unsure if waves might reclaim it. My skin awakened under that small circle traced by his thumb. But more potent than physical sensation was the emotional cord thrumming between us. Respect. In a society where speed often masquerades as passion, his patience felt revolutionary. He leaned forward, eyes level with mine, and spoke almost in a whisper. Tonight is not a deadline. 6 additional words. Another key. Another door of anxiety unlatched. Tears, unbidden, salt-warm, scurried down my cheeks. Maybe it was release, maybe gratitude. Maybe my heart simply needed water after running so many fearful miles. Our eyes' fingers brushed away each tear as reverently as a monk tends sacred candles. When he planted a soft kiss on my forehead, it was less a claim than a benediction. We lay side by side, separated by a polite cushion of air. I rested my head over the rise and fall of his chest, listening to a heartbeat that sounded remarkably like my own. Outside, the world hummed. Distant traffic, a stray dog orchestrating the moon in rusty barks, nocturnal insects zipping arcs of summer symphony. Inside, our breaths created a quieter music. Slowly we spoke of childhood hobbies, rebellious teenage secrets, the flavors of kheer we each preferred. Every anecdote built a bridge, plank by wooden plank, across the chasm of our unfamiliarity. When his fingertips traced lazy patterns on my forearm, a constellation only he could name, the touch felt earned, not seized. Hours unfurled unnoticed. Some part of me expected a climactic crescendo dictated by rom-com tropes. Instead, intimacy arrived on tiptoe, a gardener rather than a storm. At one point he paused, voice thick with sincerity. If at any moment you want to stop, we stop. This night belongs to both of us. The phrase belongs to both shimmered like freshly minted currency. Under that permission, desire, tentative but authentic, breathed its first shy breath. When I finally tilted up to kiss him, our lips met as explorers, not conqueror and conquered. We were clumsy, our noses bumped, we giggled mid-kiss. Yet each imperfection testified that this was real, unscripted, ours. Pause with me, dear listener. Society often packages a first wedding night inside either comic punchlines or sultry fantasies. Rarely does it mention the middle path, the sacred ground where tenderness matures at its own pace. What our eyes offered was not simply restraint. It was an understanding that trust is foreplay's elder sibling. Without trust, the body is a locked museum. With it, every touch becomes art. That night we chose themselves over the expectation. We exchanged stories more intimate than any embrace. How I once failed a math exam and cried behind a mango tree. How he secretly writes poetry lines on scraps of receipts. How both of us fear hospitals. How both of us have always believed love should feel like coming home, not like passing an audition. Our bodies touched, yes, fingers exploring collarbones, lips mapping cheeks, but each gesture arrived announced, asked permission, waited for a nod nestled in the eyes. Compare it to two musicians improvising jazz. One offers a note, the other echoes, together forming melodies unknown to sheet music. Eventually, intimacy did deepen, wrapped in moonlit quiet, but the details matter less than the ethos. Consent is the most seductive language, patience the most powerful aphrodisiac. If Hollywood is a fireworks show, ours was the slow glow of fireflies. Softer, perhaps, yet capable of turning an entire field luminous. Dawn seeped through curtains like diluted honey. Rose petals lay strewn, a map of where conversations had wandered. I woke cocooned against a heartbeat now familiar. He stirred, hair tousled, eyes heavy with new devotion. We smiled, no words required, for language sometimes folds beneath the weight of feeling. Over breakfast syrupy with cardamom tea, we replayed the night in whispers, not to brag but to treasure. I realized then that forever is stitched not only by grand gestures, but also by microscopic kindnesses. Offering water before kisses, humor before seduction, listening before touching. Dear bride-to-be, tuck this truth inside your trousseau. Your first night is yours. It must grow from comfort, not coercion. Flourish in dialogue, not demand. Let your yes be confident and your no be honored. Never measure your worth against fictional timelines. Dear groom-to-be, chisel these words onto the door of your heart. Be sanctuary before you are suitor. A woman enveloped in safety becomes a universe of courage. Honor her boundaries, and she may invite you beyond them of her own free will. Romance is not speed, it is temperature. Keep it warm and steady, not scalding, not cold. Silence can soothe. Sometimes the most eloquent sentence is a shared breath. Humor unarms fear. A well-timed, gentle joke can rescue someone from spiraling thoughts. Tiny touches speak volumes. The brush of a thumb across knuckles can echo louder than a violin concerto. Consent is continual. It is not a single gate unlocked forever. It is a series of doors, each requiring another gentle knock. Trust turns the mundane into magic. A glass of water becomes an elixir. A forehead kiss a royal decree. When trust paints them golden. When I revisit that inaugural night, nostalgia unfurls like scented smoke. I do not remember precise choreography. I remember feelings, the click of understanding, the hush of respect, the electricity of a permission granted and honored. That is the love story. Not fireworks but fireflies. Yes, yet together we wrote constellations across the humid dark. So if life has led you here, perhaps jittery about your own upcoming wedding, perhaps curious, perhaps simply a romantic soul wandering YouTube at 2 a.m., carry this with you. Love that begins in gentleness grows fearless. Love that begins in pressure often limps on crutches of resentment. Choose gentleness. Demand respect. Offer patience. Sprinkle humor. And never underestimate the transformative power of a single sentence whispered in sincerity. If this story stirred your heartbeat, broadened your perspective, or simply kept you company through the quiet of midnight, tap that like button. It tells the algorithm that you too believe in patient love. Share this video with anyone who could use a reminder that softness is strength. And if you'd like more narratives where night turns into insight, subscribe to The Night Vibe and join our growing constellation of thoughtful dreamers. Until the next Twilight Tale, keep your lights low, your hearts open, and remember, the bravest thing two people can do is meet each other slowly. Thank you for watching, and above all, thank you for believing in stories that choose tenderness over haste, starlight over spotlight, and hearts over hype.